It's time to open up the Peacock and Williamson mailbag for week 11, and it's a QB-centric mailbag, the Bears QB curse. How strong is it? And we're redrafting rookie quarterbacks mid-season. Coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. By the way, those are the handles where most of the questions came from on today's mailbag episode. And we appreciate all the everydayers getting involved with the weekly mailbags and all the new listeners as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play your first $5. All right, Matt, let's open up the mailbag. And there's been some conversations, and we were asked to talk about the topic of the week, which is the firing of Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears, but more from the lens of their rookie quarterback and Caleb Williams. And whether or not it matters who the offensive coordinator is. Is the curse of the Bears quarterbacks so strong since Sid Luckman that it doesn't matter who the coordinator is? The Bears are going to ruin their quarterback. And the accompanying theory to all of this is going back to the 2017 draft. And the Bears drafting Mitch Trubisky, they traded up one spot from 3 to 2 to draft Mitch Trubisky. And in that same draft was Patrick Mahomes, who's the best quarterback in the league currently. The theory is if the Bears would have drafted Mahomes, Mahomes would not be Mahomes, and they would have ruined him too. How strong is the Bears quarterback curse, man?
Obviously, it's a lot of speculation, and it's a hard thing to comment on. But I really think that the greatest teams, dynasties in NFL history are a rare combination of coach and quarterback. I mean, Walsh and Montana, Brady and Belichick. I mean, there's many that are Hall of Famers on their own, but with the other guy become transcendent and dynasties. You know what I mean? And I think everyone on the planet would think, boy, the Bears would be in better shape if they were taking Mahomes than Trubisky. Of course, but I also think that year, quote, off or, waiting till week 17 at that point did Mahomes a lot of good. And I love to pat myself on the back and say Mahomes was my number one quarterback in that draft, and he was. But I also thought he was going to be as big a roller coaster in his rookie year as anyone. I mean, coming out of Texas Tech, he was a wild man, that there was going to be a lot more lows had he got thrown in there in week one than what we saw when he finally became the starter and all the stuff he learned from Alex Smith and Andy Reid. So I'm sure he would not have been treated as well or developed as well. And maybe he would have had some scar tissue that he would have to overcome from that rookie year. So I don't believe in the curse, but I do, the older I get, believe that some organizations are not great, are flat out bad at what they do, despite being worth $6 billion or whatever. It doesn't mean that they're run by the right people. Like I was joking on my Steelers show yesterday, I'm not making fun of the Titans head coach, but he wasn't super qualified, or Antonio Pierce, would Apple have hired one of them to be their CEO? You know what I mean? Like, these are multi-billion-dollar organizations, give me Belichick, give me Reid, give me some,
And Apple's a good example. Apple doesn't exist because they hired a great CEO. It grew organically because of the idea originally, and what was magical about the thing that grew into Apple to where you have to hire a CEO to run it and keep the ship straight. And I think that's a lot like a quarterback. You can have this great idea, this great talent, but it has to be cultivated into this organization. And I think you can absolutely ruin a quarterback. And I don't think it's crazy at all to think that Patrick Mahomes would have looked not like Mitch Trubisky necessarily, but he would have looked closer to Mitch Trubisky than the Chiefs version of Patrick Mahomes if he was a Bear.
I agree.
I think it would have raised the degree of difficulty. And for him being a really, like, you look at someone like Anthony Richardson, and the scouting reports were similar, not because of, necessarily speed and athleticism and all this stuff, but it was like, man, this guy's wild, amazing talent. We don't know what to do with him. The league had no clue what to do with Patrick Mahomes. His arm talent was crazy, and it was through the roof, and you knew the talent was there. But going back to 2017, the league has changed a lot. And now when you see people doing these, trick shot throws, it helps you as a prospect. And in fact, Patrick Mahomes might have gotten Zach Wilson drafted number 3 overall, because all of a sudden it was like, wow, he could do the Mahomes type stuff. When Mahomes was doing it, it's like these old school GMs and coaches like, I don't know what, that guy's wild. I don't know what to do with that guy.
I don't want that guy. Yeah.
Andy Reid's credit and Brett Veach and the Kansas City Chiefs, he went to the perfect spot. And I think Mitch Trubisky would have been better if he went to sit behind Alex Smith and had Andy Reid as his head coach and had Tyreek Hill to throw to. I think Mitch Trubisky would have looked a lot better. Would he have been Patrick Mahomes? I don't think so. Would Patrick Mahomes have looked worse if he went to the Bears? Absolutely. And I don't believe in a curse, but I do believe in organizational structure and reasons why the Bears have been bad at quarterback. And it's been top down. And it's not a curse. It's just being bad at developing quarterbacks. And the question is, does Mahomes get completely ruined and he's on another team and he's all of a sudden a journeyman? I can't go that far, but I can't say that Mahomes would have saved the Bears organization either.
No, last thing I have, and I say this a lot, is if all those guys are stocks and we have to invest in them after the draft, I'm more worried about the team than the name. You know what I mean? Where did you land? Even if I wasn't big on them pre-draft, but boy, you went to Green Bay, you went to Baltimore. He'll probably be a success. You go to Chicago, you go to the Jags, like there.
Right.
And the other thing I was going to say is, just to be frank, I was not real impressed with the Cincinnati Bengals organization the day they drafted Joe Burrow.
Right.
And I think he has overcome that hurdle more than most quarterbacks would, because he's flat out awesome.
Yep.
And maybe Mahomes would have done that for the Bears, but not been going for a three-peat and being the best ever. You know what I mean?
It's fascinating because there's so many examples of both sides of this. So you look at the team I cover closely, the 49ers, and they drafted a top 3 quarterback, and they couldn't get out from under him fast enough because they wanted to go with the guy who was literally the last pick in the draft. Yeah. And one guy was ready to play, one guy wasn't. Now, was this impatience? Was this a bad job of development? And Kyle Shanahan saying, I don't really want to develop a quarterback. I want a guy who already can do the things I want to ask him to do, and then we'll build on that maybe. And so it's fascinating because that organization was able to find a franchise quarterback that they're about to pay a lot of money to, but it wasn't the guy that was drafted super high and the most physically talented guy. And they failed developing that guy in a very short time. And so that's one of those scenarios where it's like, wow, was it the quarterback? Because the organization is the exact same. And one guy succeeded and the other guy failed. Why is that? Was he destined to not succeed anywhere? Because that seems like a pretty good place to succeed in Kyle Shanahan's offense. And then you look at Lamar Jackson's another one. Lamar Jackson might have failed at a lot of places. I think Baltimore was the perfect place for him to go. And it was a fantastic destination. So would he have been bad elsewhere? Would a team have given up too quick on Lamar Jackson early in his development? Potentially. So bottom line is, man, if you're Lamar, you're glad you went to Baltimore. If you're Patrick Mahomes, you're glad you went to Kansas City. And I think it could have gone worse. I think they were too good to fail probably, but it certainly could have gotten worse elsewhere, including the Chicago Bears.
And to piggyback off the Purdy example, which is a great one, like Dak Prescott was a 5th-round pick. He didn't come into the league guaranteed anything, and they had the wherewithal to hitch their wagon to him. And obviously Brady's the best example ever. And I'm old enough to remember, the guy he overtook was the first pick in the draft, Drew Bledsoe, and was a top 10 quarterback at the time. He wasn't a failed Trey Lance. So
even
I wonder
Tom
how
Brady.
many.
Yeah. If Bledsoe doesn't, what did he tear his ACL? What was it? Broke his leg, whatever it was. it was a pretty nasty injury, right? If he doesn't get hurt, Tom Brady never becomes Tom Brady.
And it was either the AFC Championship game against the Steelers or the Super Bowl where both were healthy and Belichick had the pick.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that Brady would have been Tim Rattay, a fellow 6th round pick from that draft if he went to a different location. But a lot of things have to go right, and Brady was in the perfect spot.
But I do wonder how many of those 5th, 6th, 7th round picks could have been a starter if they would have been recognized and given a chance. Because a lot of them just don't even get reps. You know, like you just vanish.
Kurt Warner had to have that perfect place where he had the opportunity in a great offense. He might have not got that shot somewhere else, and we'd have never had the Kurt Warner career arc potentially.
It's easy to stick with the first rounder, but But yeah, Mahomes would have been. The Bears would be better with Mahomes. I think his legacy would be worse.
Clearly, absolutely. Yeah. And maybe it's impossible to know. Maybe completely ruined. That's possible. Maybe. That's one of the possible outcomes, right?
Like I don't want to spend too much time on this subject, but I was with the Browns a long time ago, and a lot of people on that staff were there when they drafted Tim Couch, who is going to go down as one of the biggest busts ever. And everyone on the staff said, we ruined Tim Couch. Tim Couch was great. He did nothing wrong. If we would have treated him better, he would be a Pro Bowler year after year. We ruined him, Yeah.
The expansion Texans with David Carr.
Right,
That's the record for getting sacked as a rookie. How does that not ruin you?
Right. And does that happen to Caleb Williams, which leads us to our next question? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So let's redraft those rookie quarterbacks then. We were asked this question in this week's mailbag. How do we see these quarterbacks now that we've seen them play through over half of an NFL season and more? From the Peacock and Williamson mailbag next. Today's episode, Peacock Williamson, brought to you by Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? History, economics, the great works of literature. Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses. And all of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or maybe just enjoy the lections. Again, Hillsdale College offering more than 40 free online courses. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. The next segment of today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And if you hear us reference a line, it comes from FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And it's time to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. In the middle of games on Sunday, you're watching football, you want to check the latest stats, live play-by-play, and so much more. You can find it all on the very same page, the very same app where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports book partner of the NFL. We've got a question from, if I can find the question, I will tell you who it is from. I believe it's from Michael. Yes, Michael, who's been a very frequent question asker here on Peacock and Williamson. If we were to redo the top 3 picks in the 24 draft, we can go beyond the top 3 picks too, Matt. Would it still go Williams, Daniels, May if you were the GM, Matt? If Daniels went to Chicago, are they still firing their offensive coordinator today? And so this kind of piggybacks off the same question. And Bears fans are the ones actually that are driving the bus, that are like, we ruin quarterbacks. Like, this is a Bears fan thing. So, but apologies to those Bears fans that don't want to be lumped in with those Bears fans. But anyway, I don't think Caleb Williams, by the way, has been ruined yet.
No,
yet. I say yet. And Daniels has looked great. Like, I think another way to ask this question: what if Cliff Kingsbury was hired as the offensive coordinator?
Yeah, And Anthony Lynn, back to our conversation yesterday, or whatever. Yeah. I'm going to view this question this way. Not going back to draft day and none of this stuff that we know happened. Like if I'm the Bears, who do I take? It's the Williamson expansion team on the middle of November gets to choose from any of the rookie quarterbacks. What's your draft board look like, knowing everything we know about all those players at this point? You have to take Penix out of the equation. I mean, I guess you don't. I mean, you could take the unknown. You could take door number 2. You could go fish. But I would have Nix 4th. I would have Penix 5th. And I really think it's a conversation between the 3 still.
No McCarthy?
Ooh. I don't even want to talk about those 3. I'm not sure how I would rank those now that I think about it.
It's really hard. I would take the unknown Penix McCarthy doors over Nix.
Over Nix. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
They were drafted ahead of him. As that came out of my mouth, I kind of said, that's unfair to Penix. What did he do wrong?
Right.
And just because Nix is getting better doesn't mean he's better than those unknowns.
And it's looked better, but I would still bet on the unknown of what it could be over the known of Nix so far. And so my priors haven't really changed there because that's how I already thought about him. So if you liked Penix more than McCarthy, whatever, McCarthy, Penix, McCarthy, they would go 4, 5, 6, and Nix 6 for me.
Yes. But now, okay, I would go Penix 4, McCarthy 5, Nix 6.
Okay.
But the real conversation is at the top.
Yes.
And I had them on draft day, Williams, May, Daniels. However, unlike a lot of analysts, I didn't think there was a huge cavern between any of them. I thought they were all in the same tier of quarterbacks. Therefore, knowing what we know now, if I have to take that human being, ship him to my hometown and build a team around him, Daniels would be my first pick.
Yep.
May would be my second.
Oof. That was the close one because I think it's a slam dunk. You take Daniels because I don't even looking at what Caleb Williams could be. The upside of Daniels is through the roof, and he's already a hit. And I'm confident saying he's a hit. So Daniels easy for me. I'm taking number 1 with the known ability that we've seen from him, and that's not to say that I don't like May or I think Williams is screwed, because I don't think he is at all. But I don't think there's enough upside in Williams, and I could see the upside, and I understand why Williams, and I thought Williams should have been the first pick then.
Yeah.
I would take Daniels now. The question is now between May, because May's shown some nice things, but Williams has shown some nice things too. Yes. I don't think I'm ready to say I've seen so much from May that I think, he's the guy I would take. I would go Daniels, Williams, May, and Daniels is easy one for me. And then the other 2, I don't think there's enough for me to change my priors. But I have liked what I've seen from May.
Yeah. I mean, like, Daniels doesn't have any glaring bad habits, bad things I need to correct before we even get to making him good. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think he is an easy one. I've been really impressed with May, though. I mean, if May was thrown to DJ Moore and Adunze, and I think we'd be talking a different story,
Hey, the Patriots haven't fired their offensive coordinator, though. So maybe that was what was ruining Caleb Williams. And again, I say ruining, but there's some good there as well. Like I feel better about Caleb Williams than I did about Justin Fields first half
or Trubisky
or Trubisky, right?
Yeah.
I don't think he's ruined. I don't think he's a bust at all, which is why I'd still go him too. But man, with what we've seen from Daniels, I don't think there's any other way to say it. But I think you have to take the known and plus still upside of Jayden Daniels, number 1.
Yeah. And if we had this exercise, I mean, this is I'm totally out of left field, but if we were to draft any quarterback, like I'm going to build my board of Mahomes is 1, Allen's 2, Burrow's 3, Lamar's 4, whatever, like those guys. I mean, the stars. Williams wouldn't be super far down the list though. Like I still think there's a lot of redeeming qualities and a lot of upside there.
I would take Caleb Williams in a heartbeat on my football team, right? Yeah, it's that.
Like I'm taking him ahead of Lawrence or,
Oh, so you would take Caleb Williams over Lawrence. And they were kind of similarly viewed coming into the league. Like the next great quarterback. And
more damage has been done to Lawrence.
That's true. But you've also seen more good from Lawrence.
Yeah.
Like there's been times where it's like, oh yeah, this is a franchise guy and we're going to sign him to a long-term deal. But there's been some bad as well. And he's not quite as busy as what you hoped and what you thought you would see. And I think, again, yeah, it comes to the unknown. It's like, okay, we've seen what Lawrence can be, what he is. He's not done even, so that's actually Lawrence becomes a really good part of that conversation that we talked about. Is he's overcome being ruined. Like he was in the bad thing, right? He was you went to a really bad spot and he's still kind of come out of it okay and been good enough to where they wanted to give him a new contract and things are still bad. Has he been overrated and has he been part of that? Or has he overcome being in a franchise that should have ruined most quarterbacks?
He didn't get Tim couched.
Yes.
I mean, it's not like this is unrepairable. But I would still take like CJ Stroud over both of them. Jordan Love, guys like that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. With what we've seen from Stroud. Jordan Love's an interesting one. He would be kind of close for me. He'd be right in there. Williams, that's a really interesting one. I would love to hear it from our listeners. Let us know what you think.
I would say this could be a whole episode.
You could draft Caleb Williams or Trevor Lawrence right now. Which one do you take? That's an interesting one.
And where's your breaking point? Where's the guy where you say, okay, I'll take Lawrence or Williams over all these guys, but here's where I can't do it anymore. Like I'm taking Herbert over them. I'm taking Stroud over them.
I would take Herbert. Would you take Caleb Williams or Brock Purdy?
Williams.
Well, wrong answer. Okay, let's move on.
I think you would too. I think if the Bears called Lynch and you're sitting there in his office, I think you'd accept that trade.
I think you probably would. Maybe not John Lynch. Maybe not Lynch and Kyle Shanahan because Kyle Shanahan's like bounced around with quarterbacks and he loves Brock Purdy. So maybe not. But I think.
But you would.
Yeah, I think most people would. I would do it just to see it. I love chaos, and I'm not as I don't have like number 13 jerseys behind me here, right? I'm a fan of the game, but I also like just for scientific purposes, I would want to see it. I would want to see Caleb Williams and Kyle Shanahan's offense. I mean, that would
there's a chance, a slim chance, because this is historic. That could be Mahomes and Reed. That's the ceiling of that marriage. You know what I mean? That's the ceiling.
Okay, let's see it. It's probably easier to find a Brock Purdy than to find what could potentially be Mahomes. And that's what the 49ers tried to do. They got destroyed by Josh Allen, and Kyle Shanahan's like, I want a Josh Allen. And they went and traded up for Trey Lance, and it didn't work out. But the thing with Caleb Williams is if you don't get the ball out in time, throw with anticipation, like Kyle Shanahan won't play you either. So like there would be an interesting combination in a match. Kyle Shanahan doesn't like hero ball so much. He wants you to know where to go with the football, get it out quick.
Having a Pro Bowler like Purdy's great, but you could have the MVP.
Oh, I would for sure vote for it, and I would take that. Yeah. That would be so fun, right? And it could go.
We could do this forever, like Kyler Murray. I mean, like that could be an episode in the offseason at some point.
Yeah, yeah. The sliding scale of Caleb Williams. Where would you bet on his talent versus other quarterbacks that are more known?
Or even do it with Daniels.
Love it.
Somebody you're even more confident in. I mean. Daniels or Love, I mean, like we could go all day,
What about Russell Wilson and the Pittsburgh Steelers? We got Steelers, Richardson, Young, more quarterback questions as well coming up to finish up today's Peacock and Williamson mailbag next. The final segment of today's mailbag brought to you by Prize Picks, daily fantasy made easy. And when you play Prize Picks, it is the best way to get in on the DFS action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineup stays in play, even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half, doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup alive. And when you sign up today, get $50 instantly when you play your first $5, and tons of promotions as well on Prize Picks, like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts each player projection to select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value on your lineups. So download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL. Get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup at Prize Picks. That's promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup at Prize Picks. Run your game. Do you think, Matt, Anthony Richardson, this question from JDS, by the way, appreciate JDS. He's always getting involved here. Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson next year, are any of them on their current team? And a question about Sam Darnold as well. Very different conversation with Sam Darnold. Is he back next year? He's on a 1-year deal with the Vikings. Does he find a lucrative deal to go be a starter somewhere else? And the Vikings go with McCarthy, who's been injured all of his rookie year. Those are 3 interesting ones. Darnold, Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young. Are they on their current teams in 2025?
Let's start with the older guy, Darnold. I think no. I actually had this exact conversation on our Steelers show yesterday, and then we spun it even to Justin Fields. Will Justin Fields be a day 1 starter? I lean towards no. I think Darnold's a yes.
And Fields could be valuable to another team if the Steelers, and it looks like they have picked Russell Wilson, that he's going to be the guy for at least a time until another quarterback becomes developed and is better than him, which could be 2027. I don't know when that would happen, but it's probably not going to be next year for the Steelers, I would guess. And we've had that question as well about Tomlin and what he's done with the quarterbacks. And actually, this all ties into the Bears too, because Justin Fields looked better, even though Wilson ended up getting the job for the Steelers. Justin Fields looked better and different with the Steelers than he did all those years with the Bears. And so what if Justin Fields would have gone to the Steelers originally? How good would he be right now? Would he be better than what we're seeing Russell Wilson as for the Steelers? And so again, fascinating stuff there. I think that Darnold is going to be more valuable to another team as a stopgap in 2025. And he hasn't played so amazing that the Vikings have to pay him to keep him there over playing McCarthy. I think they're going to go with McCarthy in 2025. So Darnold on a different team. Fields would be interesting on another team, especially if, he doesn't have an opportunity to, is he a free agent, Fields?
Both are. Wilson and Fields are both.
Oh,
yeah.
Money involved there, but yeah, that's an easy one. You re-sign Wilson. He probably likes where he's at too. So yeah, Wilson stays, Fields gone, Darnold gone. The hard ones though are Richardson and Young. I think they both stay with their current teams in 2025.
Yeah, my predictions are similar. I think Fields competes in camp with a rookie or somebody. Darnold gets paid, not Kirk Cousins money, but gets paid to be a starter. Like he's the Giants or Raiders starter next year and kind of unquestioned. I don't know if they'll be happy about that at the end, but I think somebody will jump in that deep end. I think Richardson's a Colt. And Young's the hardest one for me. I don't know that you can say Young is clearly the starter. Like I've heard people say he should be Tua's backup. I'm like, I like the sound of that, but am I giving him away for a 3rd or 4th round pick at this point? If I'm Carolina,
you'd have to pay a salary in a situation like who's a team already paying a bunch of money to a starting quarterback. They're not going to pay 1st round number 1 overall salary to their backup quarterback. So that's a factor as well because he's not cheap either.
Kind of like Fields, though, if he could land with a Russell Wilson, that's at the end and just learn and look up to him, a Cousins, somebody that age would be really good for Bryce Young. Because I don't think anyone's going to say, I think Indy will, who knows, he could fall on his face, but I think Indy will give the vote of confidence to Richardson. He's our guy and go from there. I think Carolina won't.
You can't get enough to let that young player go be good somewhere else either.
I know.
You almost have to let him continue to fail with you because there's nothing that's going to buy that away.
So of those 4, how many do you think are opening day starters? I think Darnold and Richardson.
Who starts over Young?
Somebody else. Maybe Darnold.
They bring Darnold back to the Carolina Panthers.
He's already been there, but right. That's a great question. There's not a lot of dudes available,
I think they all start somewhere. I think Richardson and Young start again, and maybe there's contingency plans, but I think they start again. And I think
you think they're anointed the starter, like they go into training camp, like that's our starter.
They get the first rep of training camp.
Okay.
Yeah. Fields, no. I could see Fields getting a stopgap thing somewhere, but I could also see him like being the backup in Baltimore or maybe competing with Richardson.
I was about to say, how about Indy?
Let's lean into a running.
I like that if I'm Indy,
and especially if Richardson keeps getting hurt, then you have another guy to plug in.
I think that would be my target if I were Indy.
Let's develop Richardson as a starter and then
give him $10 million.
Have a strong competitive situation with him, though.
Yeah, and they're very similar. It's not Flacco and Richardson. Like Carr could end up in Carolina, or I don't know if Daniel Jones will be a starter next year, but I don't know if he'll be a Giant either. Now,
Tomlin coach of the year? Mike Tomlin coach of the year?
Yes, but I'm biased. I think Arizona's got a strong case too.
I love Arizona's case for
it.
I think Washington. There is the Packers again.
Minnesota.
Malik Willis, another example of the quarterback development thing. All of a sudden, it's like, well, guess what? You can win games with Malik Willis. You couldn't in his last place. The next time he plays, guess what? Now you can win games with him.
Now you can win games.
Coaching matters.
Yeah. It absolutely does.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen. Appreciate all the question askers. Make sure you get those questions into us every week. And maybe if you're just watching football and you got something bouncing around your noggin, hit us up at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL. Drop a question on YouTube. Subscribe while you're there. Matt and I back Friday to finish making our picks for Week 11 right here, Peacock and Williamson.